Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be putting a A904 valve body into an A727 transmission. Let's get to it. The original plan with this transmission was to take the valve body out, put in a transgo shift kit, put it all back together. When I got it apart, this separator plate, it's been beat up in a few spots, but especially right here. This hole, I don't know if you can see that. It's really beat up, and the hole going through it I don't think is round anymore. That means that a round check ball isn't going to seal. It turns out that these separator plates I can't seem to find anywhere. B&M does have these in their shift kits, the Transpac kits, but if I use that, then I probably can't use or shouldn't use the Transgo shift kit. I did have a 904 from a Slant 6 just laying around. I'll likely tear this thing apart just so we can see the difference between the 904 internals and the 727, but I don't really have a use for it. Interestingly, all the information that I see about shift kits for these torque flights, it's the same kit for a 727 and a 904. That got me to thinking, I wonder if the valve bodies are actually the same between them. These separator plates, you can see this one's got a number on it, 163. These are different for different applications, so some of the orifices are different size, and that gives you different shift qualities for the weight of the vehicle and things like that, but broadly speaking, they are the same. You can see the separator plate on this 904 was a 165 instead of a 163. If anybody has any idea how to decode those or what they mean, go ahead and leave a comment down below. So what I decided to do was to take this valve body out and put it into this transmission. It does not directly bolt up. There is one spot right here where this bolt is that's different between the two transmissions. It's actually about, I don't know, maybe a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch, one direction or the other, depending on whether it's a 727, it's this way. If it's a 904, it's this way. On the valve body, though, this hole is oval. It's not round. Which makes sense. That way they can use these same plates on both at the factory. This hole, though, on the separator plate, which is sandwiched in here, is not oval. So this will get in the way if you try to directly bolt the A904 up to a 727 or vice versa. So we'll have to address that hole when we clean this up. Looking really, really similar. We'll get it out of here, clean it off in the parts washer, and then be back. They are not identical. They're very, very similar, but there are a few spots that I have concerns about. Things like this, completely blocked on the 904. The top one is our 727. A little bit different size there. There. This one looks like it's offset just a hair. This. But the biggest one is this guy here. This hole corresponds to this elongated hole. So this is in a position for a 904, And if it was a 727, the bolt goes down here. So you have to elongate this in order for it to be able to bolt up. But if I elongate this, I can take this 904 valve body, reassemble it, and stuff it into the 727. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, you can see I've rounded that out, so now that bolt can pass through here. Get this valve body cleaned up, get the marking fluid off of here, and we'll get this back together. I'm going to give this separator plate a once over with Scotch-Brite on both sides, just to make sure that when it was punched out there aren't any ridges or anything like that. Okay, there we go. Cleaned up and ready to go back in. I'm going to clean out this valve body, both halves, with some solvent, and then blow it out with compressed air, and then we'll reassemble. In this case, I'm not putting a shift kit in. I'm doing no modifications at all. We just want to get this thing back on the road. Next, we need to make sure that we have all of the check balls in. Got the 1/4-inch ones. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Some valve bodies have a 6th one right here. Then the larger one goes here. Then we have this spring, and then this one sits on top of that spring. If we take a look here, you can see that's got some wear from a check ball. That wear goes right here. Right there. So that helps us align this. And I can actually look down and see the check balls through these holes. You can see one here, 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 here. This is the big one. And then this is the one that's on that spring. The 904 did have a check ball here. According to the manual, 727s don't have one there. So I'm going to leave it out and we'll see what happens. So, word of caution here. You've got all these screws that you pulled out. There are actually more threaded holes on this than there are screws that you pulled out. So this one, and this one are threaded holes, but you don't have a screw in them. I actually had to go back and look at previous footage to figure out which ones were filled and which ones were not. So these 3 do not take screws in them. Here's that place we did the grinding. You can see that that plate now, it's a through hole all the way. In fact, this valve body now would go back into either a 904 or 727 because the hole is in a slightly different spot on the 2 transmissions. Another optional and simple modification you can do is onto this Rooster comb here. This is the selector for whatever gear you're in, so right now it's in park. And it's difficult to shift out of that, so there's park. There's reverse, neutral, drive, second, first. This edge right here is steeper than all of these others. So it's actually harder to get it out of park than it is to go between all of the other gears. And you can feel that when you're shifting it. That being sharp tends to wear on this ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this Rooster comb off and just smooth that out just a little bit. It'll make it easier to take it out of park. The shifter up on the column actually has a detent so that you have to pull it forward to go down out of park. So that's going to prevent you from accidentally doing it. This just makes it a little bit smoother, a little bit easier to get it out of park and into gear. So we're going to take care of that while we've got it apart. To take this off, there's just an E-clip here. Remove that. And this comes up. This spring and ball that were up in here just shot out. So we're going to set those to the side so we don't lose them. And I'm not going to disassemble any of this other stuff here. Once you get the Rooster comb out, clean it up. Check for wear here. You can see where it rubs because it's constantly being pushed against. So that detent's pushing here. So this has always got pressure on it. So just see if it's worn. Make sure everything's good there. This seal, the rebuild kit, comes with one of these. So I'm going to replace that. But I'll do that after I do this. So right, you can kind of see it here. See how that's a real steep angle there? And all of these are much more gradual. We're going to just take a little bit off right here. Okay, taking a little bit off of there. Focus. Damn it. Not much, but you can see it's now not quite so sharp. I'm going to put this seal in. The cup goes upward. This little foot needs to go inside that valve. So it does this. Now we're going to get this detent back in. I guess before we do that, we'll put this washer and E-clip back on here. Okay, to get this detent ball and spring back into this housing, there's a pin right here that we have to remove. Take something sharp, like a scribe, and go around the pin. This is an aluminum housing, and they peened it just a little bit in order to hold that pin in. And then use some needle nose pliers and bring that pin up. Take the ball and put it back in. Put in the spring. Then I'm going to use something that's small enough to fit all the way down in there. Push it in, look through this hole to see that the spring has passed, and then we'll push the pin in. Maybe. It's important that the spring is fully behind the pin. And once you have that, I'm going to push it in to straighten it. Down into the hole. Make sure it's completely down in there. And now I'm just going to take a screwdriver, you could use a punch, whatever, and just peen a little bit of that aluminum back over again. And that'll hold that pin back in. Make sure it works. Alright, we now know that it works. This valve body is ready to go into the transmission. Thanks for watching.